Now I feel like I'm on amateur hour.
Dude, I'm on after hour every day, so don't worry about it. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate Josh. Is it Josh or Joshua? What does he prefer?
Yeah, Josh.
Josh. I appreciate Josh reaching out and setting this up. And then I fumbled it and forgot to send the invite out with the link. So
Because I had
actually, it looks
no.
like I forgot to send the invite out altogether, and that's
Yeah,
on me. So
yeah, no, that's okay. I'm just going through my emails, and I don't have anything from your email. And I know email
yeah,
swap it up. Yahoo just loses emails. I don't know where the hell they go sometimes. So
no, and I didn't send it out. That's on
okay,
me.
okay,
So
good.
thank you for
No, no
pushing
problem.
me along, man. It's all.
No
It's
problem.
incredibly embarrassing. But anyway, man, I am excited to talk to you just personally because I've been following you guys for a while. I think the very first time I heard about you was on Bigger Pockets, and I don't remember what show it was, but uh, what I sat back and realized is if I ever got to talk to you guys, I'm going to have a hard time keeping up because y'all feed off each other. I mean, you guys are just nonstop. I'm like, man, these guys are, I don't know if they're like, have an IV of Red Bull in them or what, but
No, no, not at all.
not at all.
It's funny because we've come a long way. I mean, like honestly, and it's only been 5 or 6 years. I'm a little bit older than you probably. So, I mean, what I've learned over the last 5 years is so many different ways to get into multifamily, and it's
Yeah.
just everyone pigeonholes himself into doing it. I got to do it myself, and that's the fallacy. I mean, we had a money mixer this weekend with 60 of our students in Jacksonville. We had syndicators there, so I mean, it's just everyone can bring something different to the table. They can start small, and it's W-2 capital, so you work with a lot of people who still have W-2s, right?
Right. Yep.
So,
Almost
I mean,
everybody.
yeah, I mean, there's such an easy way to get into it, right? I mean, like everyone can continue to work and start scaling up. And then there comes a point when you want to leave your job, but there's so many different ways to get into this business. I've
Yeah.
realized over the last couple of years.
As a matter of fact, one of my members was at your meetup. I saw him post a picture he took with you, Gwaith Smith. I don't
Oh
expect you
yeah.
to remember
Yeah.
everybody, but
Yeah, no, I know Gwaith. Gwaith joined us about 2 months ago. Prosthetic guy. He makes
yeah,
prosthetics. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, I like Gwaith. He's a really
yeah.
cool dude.
He
Yeah.
seems to have a very level head about him, as
Well,
far
he's
as,
another one, right? He joined us a couple months ago. I don't think he had any idea of how many different ways you can get into multifamily. I think his way was just to buy a couple of units here and that's it. But there's so many different ways you can get into. You want to raise capital, you want to property manage, you want to run the deal, you want to show a balance sheet, whatever it is. There's so many
yeah.
different ways to do it. And I think he's jumping in the deep end, which is really good.
He is, man. He had his first, I say first webinar. I think it was last night, 2 nights ago. I
Uh
did
huh.
not attend, but I want to jump back on and watch the recording,
Uh
see
huh.
how he did, and
That's
pick
good.
on him a little bit.
That's awesome, dude.
Well,
Yeah.
cool, man. Well, the way I do podcasts is just like this. I mean, it's just,
Hmm.
hey, if we're having coffee, right, and
Hmm.
we're just shooting the shit, and
Hmm.
I'll go back and I'll do an introduction.
Sure.
Josh sent over the bio and whatnot, and I'll put all that in. Anything that you want me to highlight more so than any other part?
Basically, Pizza Guy and a drug rep bought their first deal back in 2013, 25 units, scaled up, I guess, to 1,100 units themselves. Did their first syndication in November of this past year,
Yeah.
and
That
now
was your
they're
first one? Was this past year?
yeah. We had never syndicated because we just kept
Okay.
rolling the money. So it's just me, Jake, and my partner Mike who own Black
Nice.
Coffee. But that's the problem. I didn't have to wait. I could have syndicated it sooner, but we were just equity hounds, so we just wanted to equity to ourselves. But man, syndication is just a completely different beast. If you can
It
control
is.
the GP and you can do a little catch up on the pref rate and you can do some asset management fees and the act fee and you buy the deals, you just got to get great deals. If you can do that, you can really build a freaking awesome business.
Yeah.
You really
I
can.
like that phrase you just used, equity hounds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
we
like
are.
it.
But it's good. But you know what? Sometimes it limits you because you're just thinking about the equity. Doesn't mean you can't share the equity. But I think when we refi these properties, if you own 20% or 30% of something and you're refining it, that money's going to come back all to you, right? And
Right.
you have to be disciplined enough to put into the next deal.
Yeah.
So,
It's and it does take discipline, right? Because
yes.
you get this big, yeah, I like to compare it to the college kid who just got signed for whatever professional sports and he gets this huge bonus check for
Hmm.
millions and millions of dollars. So it's somebody who's never had that much money themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Now what do they do, right? And that's why you see a lot of these guys who go in the first rounds. I'm particularly picking on the NFL, but they go in these first rounds. They don't do a whole lot with their
Mm-hmm.
NFL career because I think that drive is eliminated,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they get this big, huge payday, and then you get the Tom Brady's in the world who have to go to a combine to prove themselves, and they just produce. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe Tom Brady's a bad example if you don't like Tom Brady, but
You know, I'm a Jets fan, but I have to say they have a really unique situation there. I don't think those guys like playing football. I think those guys like winning. I really
yeah,
do. No, seriously. And I think they I was talking to somebody yesterday, day before, they generate success and happiness by winning, right? If
yeah,
I'm playing football, I just want to play and have a good time. If I win the Super Bowl, great. Their whole mantra is we win or we just had a terrible year. And I don't know if that's a great way to live because
yeah,
he looks like he's going to commit suicide, his Belichick on the sidelines. He doesn't look like he's having fun. He looks like it's a painstaking process. And it's, he's a genius interchanging parts. But I
yeah,
think 95% of the companies in the US, if they do that, the culture would be total shit because
yeah,
it doesn't seem like not that he doesn't care about his teammates, but he's like, okay, I don't need you anymore. Let's get the next guy in and filling in the pieces. And I'm really amazed that he's had a run like that to be able to do
yeah,
something like that. Because if you do that in a company, you're going to get employees who are completely pissed off. They know they're being used and then they're just being replaced by younger people or by better people. And then when is my time going to be done? I
yeah.
guess everyone goes there to win a ring, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm trying to equate that to business. Like, what companies do you know that are really super successful like them, like at the pinnacle? I don't think Apple does that. Do you? I don't think Chick-fil-A does that.
I
I
don't
don't see.
know. I'm very confident. I don't know. I've never worked for either one of those companies. They never come up publicly and said this is what we're going to do. GE for a long time had this 10% rule, and if you were in the bottom 10% of your whatever department you were in, you were gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the annual review. So it didn't really matter. So I don't. Um,
Yeah, where's GE now, though? What
well,
happened?
that was going to be my follow up. You
Yeah.
don't hear so much about them, and I don't know if it's because of that policy, and I don't know if Jack Welch was behind that, but he's obviously not as evolved at all. But you're right. I mean, they're you don't.
You see them play. I'm not saying that they're not having fun or anything like that. And he's been there for the entire run. I'm just struggling with that because you gauge success by, okay, they won the Super Bowl. Obviously, that's how you're always remembered and all.
Yeah,
But no, I don't know. It's weird. They have a weird culture there. If you look at the team, right?
yeah, and a diehard Patriots fan, we go, yeah, winning culture, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. And
No,
I
it's
had been
true.
to a game in Foxborough, and it was fun, and the
Yeah.
fans were awesome.
Hmm.
Everybody was nice. But it's an interesting thing. Foxborough is just, and it's in the middle of nowhere.
I know. I know.
I guess there's a big tax advantage for going out there. So
Uh-huh. It's weird. No, I know.
yeah,
I'm struggling with that because people are always talking about success and about goals and all. And I guess if you put that in the beginning of the year, our goal is if we don't succeed by winning the Super Bowl, the year was a waste of time or a loss.
yeah,
There's only one team out of 27 can win it. And you see how it is. You can lose because the refs suck. You know what I'm saying? So how do you say, okay, we had an unsuccessful, like I'm a Cowboys fan. They got into the playoffs.
yeah,
Dak had a good year. I mean, okay, they win the Super Bowl, but hey, they had a pretty good season. So is it a failure? No, I think it's a success. I think they can build on it, right? So it's
yeah,
just all how I guess everyone gauges it, right?
yeah. You said 27. Aren't there 32 teams?
I don't know how many. Was it 32?
I
I'm an
think.
old. I'm
Well,
old.
no, I thought you made
Yeah,
like the Raiders are never going to win it, right?
yeah,
The Cleveland
yeah.
Browns, they're never going to. I
But
mean,
everyone's saying the Browns are going to be good this year, right? Everyone says that
they're
their culture sucks. They see that's the thing. So that's the other thing. They are completely like when you start identifying as like that. When you
yeah,
identify as a completely see that. So the identity is really important because the Patriots have the identity of winning, right? Even the Jets. The Jets are freaking horrible. I'm a
yeah.
Jets fan. Come on, man. I mean, you're in New York. It's like the Knicks. I used to be a Knicks fan, a basketball fan. It's just you create that identity and nobody wants to come play for you, man. That's a
Yeah.
problem,
How do
right?
you? So let's relate that to investing for a minute. I love these tangents these rabbits that I tend to chase when I interview
Mhm.
people, and that's probably the best one so far. But how do you equate went to real estate? I mean, do you individually set goals, and do you and Jake come together and say, okay, here's what we're going to accomplish as amount of doors? What are some of the goals that you, because that's something we focus big on in the W2 Capitalist is, we go off the 12-week year book or concept by Brian Moran. It seems to, at least on because I use it right in my daily grind, to where it seems to keeps me more productive, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm getting a lot done. I've got a lot of momentum. But I talked to a psychologist last week, not my personal psychologist. I don't have one of those yet. Maybe soon. But he's an expert on negotiating, and has been an expert for. He hosts a radio show on NPR, San Francisco's Dr. Marty Nimko, and he works with people, coaches. He's a career coach, basically. And he's like, I don't set goals. Him personally, he goes, if I get an open time spot, I just go and do. And like, well, that's a disciplined human being. That is not me. I've got to have something written down and looked at, and my plan for the next, with a 12-week year, the next quarter. But what do you what do you do for that?
Me personally, when I first started and I was working at the restaurant, I just wanted to get the hell out of there. So my goal was to make X amount of money per month, no matter how I did that, right? And when I got close to it, I left. I was quote unquote not totally financially free yet. I moved down to Florida, and my goal was to become financially free. I don't go by number of doors or whatever. I went by number of whatever, if the deal looked good and how much more money it would bring to my draw. Once I became financially free, it's like, all right, now I got time. I started building Jake and Gino, but I was disciplined in structuring my day, structuring my week, being productive. And now it's just like, I'm reading a book, Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. And when you,
Heard that. Yeah.
I'm a life coach. So I coach a lot of students, and I'm trying to go more towards peak performance. And the chemicals in our brain, I mean, people really have to study brain and about dopamine, about serotonin, because dopamine is an instant gratification drug. So the problem with multifamily is you can't have that dopamine rush. You need to have the dopamine rush about doing little goals, calling up a broker, getting a rush, putting it on a piece of paper, being visual, putting your goals down because we're visual, and striking it off. And then my partner's got that.
Yeah.
He has that dopamine rush every time he has a cart stock for the week, and I see him meticulously crossing it off. That gives him that little juice or spark to get the next thing done, and then get the next thing done, and then get the next thing. Then by the end of the week, it's done. And then Sunday he builds up the whole week. I'm a little more fluid because I can get calls scheduled during the week. I need to create content. I need to be on podcasts. I'm analyzing deals. I'm helping students now. So we're stacking, and we're creating other multiple streams of income. As far as we're doing mortgages now, we have the syndication company. We're talking to investors. We just had that weekend meetup. So, I mean, we should do goals, right? But we have weekly calls. We have we call level 10 meetings with every different company. So I have about one a day on average with each company. And from there, we'll do 30 days, 60 day, and 90 day. We'll brainstorm, and then we'll do, what has to get done quarterly, what has to get done every 6 months and yearly. And then we'll just go through them every week and see what we need to do. And we'll pivot whenever we need to do something. There's nothing really set in stone. Yeah. I think you need to be, but for me, I don't really have any more income goals. I don't really care how many doors we have. I have more than enough money. And I know if I love the system that I'm figuring out, and I'm helping people out, the more people I help out, the more properties we buy, the more money we make. That's what it comes down to,
Yeah. So you threw a lot at me right there. So I'm going to try to unpackage a little bit of it at a time. The first guy that ever introduced me to the whole dopamine serotonin effect was Simon Sinek. I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yeah.
His book, Start With Why, was a big influence on me.
First book I read. Yeah, that's his first book. I'm reading the second one. The second one, you got to read the second one. It's great.
What's the second one?
It's called Leaders Eat Last. It's a great book. That's
his. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. That's why I'm just started the first 80 pages or something, but reading that and actually going back, reading it and taking notes, I'm like, wow, there's a reason why people do certain things. And it's hard for multifamily, because multifamily is basically, I equate it to being a farmer. You're planting a seed.
Oh yeah.
You pray to God that it doesn't snow, it doesn't rain, you don't have hail. So 4 months later, you'll be able to cultivate it. That's when my dad came from Italy. He came here because he couldn't deal with it anymore. I mean, you're talking about life and death. Here, you do that in multifamily, it's not life and death. It's just money, right? And people are
Yeah.
so afraid of that, and they're used to the dopamine effect, right? And the problem is that it's a long game. I mean, it's only 3 years. You can become financially free within the first 3 years of doing multifamily. You really can. The problem is that most people don't have that time frame. They're used to the instant gratification of transactions. You buy a single family home, boom. 6 months later, you turn around, you made a $30,000 check.
Yeah.
Problem is it's a transaction. You're not generating any kind of equity in it. And that's the hard part about it. So the other thing when you read in the book is the oxytocin, where we're creating the Jake and Gino environment. People think they can do it on themselves. And that's why Bigger Pockets is a big success, because people get on there, they share their wins, and they're like, okay. And when you share a win, you make somebody feel good. You feel good too. And also when you're helping somebody, you also feel better, and the
Right.
person feels better. And the problem is people need that environment. In our Jake and Gino community, we have a lot of students who get on. They might have the education, but they don't have the support. They have people telling them you're crazy.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't do this. But there's not one person in our platform that's going to say that, because they're all in it. And the other thing is the identity. If you don't identify as a multifamily investor, if you're still identifying as a single family home investor or a mobile home park investor or a stock trader, you're not identifying as multifamily, it's going to be a lot harder for you to make that transition. So you need the community, you need the environment, and all these drugs that are going in your brain, shooting off in your brain. They really, if you know how to use them and you can see yourself, you can change your habits and stuff like that. It's great. Because listen, I put the phone away. The phone's on airplane. People have a dopamine effect. When you hear bing, ding, ding, you stop.
Oh yeah.
It's a great feeling. You have the likes and all, but it's so not unproductive, because you're
It is.
constantly
Yeah.
getting distracted with it.
Yeah. That's
So
what I just made sure mine was, because
yeah,
I don't know if you
yes.
saw me reach over here.
No, I didn't. And it's funny because I put mine in airplane mode now. It's in the thing, and you try to focus on what you're doing, and that's people can't do that because they're constantly being distracted. But
Yeah.
you need to really singularly focus when you're doing multifamily. You need to learn it. You need to learn how to speak to brokers. You need to how to focus on markets. You need to how to analyze deals. There's a lot in the very beginning. Learn the whole process. You need to learn how to property manage, how to vet third-party management. You need to know all about the financing, all the different strategies. You need to learn about syndication. There's a lot of work that you need to do. But once you learn it, it's not like IT where everything evolves. It's
Oh
basically
man.
in
Yeah.
strategies, right? I mean, seller financing. Learning how to speak to a broker is learning how to speak to a broker. It's emotional intelligence. Once you learn those skills, then there's stuff that people don't know that they don't know. Like, you don't need to buy one of these deals, 100-unit deals by yourself. You can raise a little bit of the capital yourself. You
Right.
can find a deal. You can, there's so many different things. You can property manage the deal. You can bird dog or wholesale the deal, whatever it is. There's so many different ways to do it. You don't need to do it yourself. And, the environment where you have other people doing it, you share these ideas and share these thoughts, you have more chance of being successful.
Yeah. And I love what you said there about checking off the boxes in that serotonin effect. And I do that. I'm not going to try to get it because it's buried under some stuff right here. But I have a checklist, my daily thing that I do. And I use time blocking. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's
Yes.
very much, it's amazing when you have 30 minutes of unobstructed time to focus and be selfish with it. How much you can get accomplished. I have people all the time, "Well, how do you do this?" And I was like, well, number one, I take time off from my W-2 to focus on real estate. Right. And luckily we live in a vacation town. We're 15 minutes from the beach. So if we vacation, it's usually going to see the family or going, taking time off to go do whatever real estate related. Um, so I think that's important, to time block, and also to be very specific about what you're trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you mentioned there that you kind of went through the. Well, let me back up. So when we started investing, I say we, my wife and I, about 5 years ago now, one of the things that was pressured upon me was, that financial success. And I finally realized that my W-2 job is not going to give me the financial success that I want, right? Not anything about the company that I worked for, the position I was in. It had its limits, and that was it, right? And I would never be able to accomplish what I wanted to financially just by doing a W-2. So we started investing. And what I realized is that not only did I start seeing that financial success happen quicker, but it eliminated that anxiety that I was having toward that, because I was focusing that anxiety and that stress on, man, my job sucks. It's horrible. Well, the job wasn't horrible. I like what I do. I'm pretty good at it, and it just doesn't pay me what I want it to pay me. Right. So you're kind of going down the line of, now that we are, you've hit certain financial targets, you're able to focus on what you want to focus. And that has to be a huge stress reliever, for you. Not right. I mean, as far as now you can coach people, you can tell people how to do multifamily. It's amazing feeling, right? And I don't know what the chemical is in your brain that does that, but that's why I start every morning at 5 a.m. and I'm doing something real estate uh, related, and I'm crossing those things off my list, and it puts me in such a better mood for when I go into the office, right? And right now that's a
Mm-hmm.
home office, but that's
Mm-hmm.
probably going to change pretty soon.
That's great. Yeah, there's so much to that also. I mean, I don't know. I was in the same position as you. I guess I liked working at the restaurant. My problem was like you, I'm working weekends, I'm working holidays. I don't want to be there at that time all the time. I'm working a lot of hours, I'm working harder. So the
Right.
expectation 15, 20 years ago was I used to make a pretty good living. But then when the recession came and all of a sudden everyone's delivering, all of a sudden my expenses are going up. All of a sudden the employees are a lot harder to get. It costing more. My expectations just dropped and I wasn't making nearly as much and I didn't see a great future. It's all about really future and hope, right? Hope and
Yep.
change. That's what the
Yep.
hope and change was in '08. Not much change. There's a lot of hope that went down the
Right.
tube.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? For 7 or 8 years, and I'm glad I have to say, looking back, I'm glad that, we squandered those 6 or 7 years in the economy, because I'd probably still be at the restaurant. I probably would have been uncomfortable, well, not uncomfortable enough. And I don't blame, the former president, but that was a tough time to be around and be a
Yeah.
business owner, because I mean, and entrepreneurship, there was there was nothing. Regulations were hard. And, I talk about in life coaching, that's an external block. We can't control what happened. But I'm thinking to myself, I wised up and I said, Jay, there's a lot of people out there making millions of dollars when this economy sucks. What are they doing? They're not doing what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
They're not W2, and I have a little small job. They're doing different stuff. So it's incumbent upon us to figure out what they're doing. And ultimately, that's what I did. I went to coaching school for the personal development, became a life coach. As a result, I mean, that's not what my byproduct was. My byproduct, I wanted to work on myself. And unfortunately, most people don't understand that it's 80% mechanical. You can learn cap rates. Anyone can learn a cash on cash return.
Right.
Anyone can learn a lot of those. But if you're not ready psychologically, you don't have that reason why to do it. If you don't have to, if you don't know how to raise your state, it's all about your physiology. You get on, you're pumped up during the day. You can control all that, but people don't even know that. They're walking around like zombies. That's the problem. You can
Yeah.
control how you feel. Let's do it right now. Stand up, deep breath, look forward, smile, laugh a little bit. You can control your whole physiology. How do you feel? I can see you smiling right now.
Yeah.
You get off this podcast, you're ready to get and call in a broker. But if you're down in the dumps and you're a victim, like we're portraying, everyone's a victim nowadays. It's all about
Right.
giving people reparations and all that. That's in the past. You can't change that. Let's focus on what we can do today going forward. Let's acknowledge the past. The past sucked for a lot of people, but we can't do anything about it. I mean,
Yeah.
even if you give them money, what's that going to happen? It's like giving an athlete $6 million. He's going to squander it. He's not going to know what to do. Let's teach
Yeah.
these people what to do from today going forward. You give a person a fish, great. Teach them how to fish.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do. So if you can raise your state, right, all of a sudden it's awesome. You're feeling good. What do I do now? The
Yeah.
second thing is identify your identity and your environment. I spoke about that. That's really important, because now all of a sudden you're calling these brokers and you're talking like a multifamily broker. You're in the environment. People are supporting you. You can ask questions. The third one is the strategy. I mean, Tony Robbins says if you're driving east and trying to find a sunset, you're never going to find it. Because, you know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
have to pick the right strategy. And people will say, yeah, well, I've done hundreds of things. Well, how many really? I've done 3 or 4. Okay. So you haven't tried enough. So
Yeah.
I started out with mobile home parks. I crapped out, didn't know 10 years ago. Then I had a strip center, crapped out, didn't know that. Then I was buying 3plexes and 4plexes and duplexes up in Rochester. That didn't work for me either. I kept changing my strategy until I found something that worked for me that I like.
Yeah.
And people don't do that because they'll quit after 1 or 2 because it's that dopamine effect where they need to have it instantaneously. And that's not how life works. That's not how our brains work. We have to make mistakes and work through those mistakes. I mean, when we first started our podcast 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago now, maybe 4.
Wow.
It's been a while. We weren't that good in the beginning. But you learn how to interview people, you learn how to be quiet, you learn how to ask the right questions. And if you're not willing to make those mistakes and look foolish, then you're not going to progress in life and become better. So, I mean, read The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. He talks about that. There's something called myelin in our brain that actually helps us create those pathways for us to be able to learn. And that hard learning, you know, Robert Kiyosaki says it, you have to make mistakes. School tells you mistakes are bad. Life is, mistakes are great if you can focus on them, figure out why you made a mistake and learn from that mistake. And then all of a sudden you'll get better, you know?
Yeah. Those 100 mistakes are actually just 100 steps closer to being successful, right? I mean,
Yep.
my wife and I, we bought our first, it was going to be a live-in flip, and we bought it in 2006. You know what happened the next couple of years, right?
Yep.
So we took some time to recover from that, and then we started trying wholesaling. Figured out that does not fit my personality whatsoever, and then we found buy and hold, and that's been amazing for us.
So it's not the strategy that's bad; it's also your personality. I'm not really a wholesaler either. I don't want to live by the seat of my pants, get a deal, put on the contract, do all that work, and then make $5,000 in a deal, and then have to do it again. If you can scale it up and create a business from that, that's great. But ultimately, I love to do that, make money, and put that aside and buy assets with that money. You know, people, when they get in that trap, though, they get in that flashy, they're making $20,000 a month and then it's a great lifestyle. But that strategy is not going to last forever. It's not a strategy that's creating wealth. It's more like creating, you know, a job.
Yeah, there's one guy that fits that description for me where he's really created a business out of it. It's Bill Allen. I don't know if you know Bill or not, but he's done tremendous stuff, and a guy that I subscribe to his list just to see what he's doing. But he's built this humongous team, and you know he's not.
It's a business. It's not a one thing. So he can multifaceted. So he can wholesale deals. I'm just saying what I would do is I would wholesale deals. I'd get my license also. Maybe start buying some of these deals. Maybe create a private money list where I can start lending money from people. Do a hard money fund. Maybe when I'm buying some of these deals, I can create a property management company because I'm holding some of these in my own portfolio, or maybe I'm selling some to investors. And then I start creating a list of investors where I have investors buying these deals with me. So it's not, you don't have to just pigeon yourself in wholesale. You can create a whole multifaceted, but the key is it's a business. Multifamily and single families should be run like a business because most people think of them as just house hacking or landlording. That's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is asset managing, where you can pull yourself out of the day-to-day, hire somebody to do a lot of the day-to-day, and then ultimately create a business through it. And that's what people I think lack. And that's where you make the money, where you can start thinking high level concepts and start, you know, I mean, your investors, if you can create an investor database where you can have people help you raise money and help, that's how you get into bigger deals. So I think we get caught up in the minutia. At least I did in the beginning. I was like, oh, I got to do all this stuff, and it hampers your growth, right? That's what ends up happening, you know.
You got to learn to outsource, especially when you have a W-2. You know, somebody posted a question last night. What's the best way for me to get to grab leads when I have a high demanding job? I was like, well, work with wholesalers, work with realtors, you know, have them flood your inbox for leads. You don't need to be sending out mailers. You don't have time for that.
He should be partnering too. I mean, that's the other thing.
Absolutely.
Get a partner and have somebody. If you have a high demanding job, that means you must be making some pretty good money at your W-2. So get somebody out and share the pie. There's no reason why you can't share the pie.
And you said something about feeding, teach people how to fish, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the other day, I made a post in one of our local community Facebook group. There was a guy in the shopping center parking lot, holding up a sign, you know, work for food or whatever. And I made a comment about making fun of him, you know, just I guess every now and then I just got to poke the crowd, right? And it rubbed so many people the wrong way. And I'm like, guys, you keep giving them money, they're going to come back, right? Because they don't know what else to do. And I got battered with, you're a jerk, you're an asshole, you know, and all this stuff. And I'm like, guys, I'm not saying that there's not a time and place. I donate my time to help out at least once a year. It probably should be more than that. And I'm working toward that, but it's not on the street corner of whatever, you know, wherever we're at. So anyway.
Well, I was reading, I don't remember where I read this, but somebody said it's actually cruel to do that because you're actually giving him money and he's becoming dependent on that, and he doesn't learn a skill set. And it's actually sort of dehumanizing if you think about it. I think everybody on this planet wants to be significant. I mean, how
Yeah.
significant can you be if you're asking for money, you're getting money from other people? Now, there's obviously people out there who have mental health issues and really need the safety.
Yes.
I'm not
Yeah.
talking about them. I'm just talking about the average, and there's a lot of them out there, and we're creating a society of them where they're victims and they're, you know what, I don't want to work today. That's not good, because
Yeah.
that's not really being productive, and that's really, I think it's damaging to the human soul. I mean, that's why basically I'm doing what I'm doing, because I can't sit still, because it doesn't matter how much money you make ultimately, really. And people are not going to understand this, but once you have enough money to pay the bills and you can buy enough cars, you go on vacations, it gets played after a while. I mean, you
Yeah.
can look at the guys who sell businesses. You know, Elon Musk sold PayPal. He had
Yeah.
more money than he needed. What did he go do all this crap? I mean, why is Trump the president? I mean, really, does the guy got to be president? I mean, he's got billions. He's doing it because it's fun. He
Yeah.
can do it. He wants to create relationships. He wants to make a difference. That's ultimately what you want to do. Become
Yeah.
financially free, and then figure out, well, okay, I'm playing with house money. I'm basically
Yeah.
playing with house money right now.
Right.
What else I can do? It's a lot of fun. I want to get up in the morning, talk to people who I want to talk to, who you want to, when you want to, why you want to, and wherever you want to. That's ultimately, I think, what financial freedom can do for people. And I think people miss that, because when you're working for W-2, like I was, you're only thinking about yourself, because you have, it's survival of the fittest. You need to
It
pay the
is.
bills. And when you become financially free, you know what? I can take today off and I can spend an hour talking to somebody on the phone and helping them out.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think people need to pay for education, because they will not act on it unless they pay for it.
Exactly.
And
How
that,
many people do you guys get? Because I get this about once a week, where somebody will say, "Hey, I want to join the mastermind." I was like, "Great, here's the link to sign up," and
yeah.
it's really inexpensive, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like $30 a month, and they're like, "Well, I shouldn't be. I have to pay money to join." I was like, "You're not dedicated." So
Yes.
so that's. I'm sure you guys run into the same thing, right?
When we first started out, and people would always call me and say, "Can I pick your brain?" And it got to the
Yeah,
point
I get.
where I don't mind. I really don't. I love sharing. I love inspiring people. But I mean, even Jay Abraham says this. I was giving people free advice. They weren't taking it. I was charging $3,000 an hour, and all of a sudden they're acting on it,
Yeah,
because people value something. And when they pull out their credit card and they put that money into the deal, whether it's $30 or $30 is nothing. I mean, come on. I mean,
yeah,
I've spent $10,000 just to go to life coaching school. I've spent 20, 30 grand on coaching, on mentorships and masterminds. So, I mean, you need to spend money. It's just the bottom line, because, and they say, well, why are you doing it for money? Well, I mean, obviously my time is worth something. And honestly, if you're not going to be able to spend, it's not spending money. You're investing in yourself. And
right.
then you are more apt to take somebody's advice or somebody's, education more seriously, because you're paying for it. Just look at what's going on. I mean, you get something for free from the government, you don't really care. But all of a sudden, you put some skin in the game. You're like, okay, let me think twice about it. I mean, I
Yeah.
even had my son invest in one of our deals, the last one. He's only
Oh,
6,
nice.
and he invested $5,000, but he's getting a draw now. He's talking about refi and rolling. He's talking about what's the property doing. If I had just said, okay, Mike, I'll put 5, and he's asking me, can I borrow money from you? So he's thinking creatively. I'm like, you're not borrowing money. You're not that good of me, dude. You know what I'm saying?
That's
But at
awesome.
least he's thinking about it, and most people don't even have that level of awareness that you got to have skin in the game. And I'm like, dude, you're not borrowing money from me. Whatever money you put in, you have 1% of the deal, you'll be getting it. But at least he's got that skin in the game. Whereas
Yeah.
if I told him, Mike, this is what we're doing on the property, he doesn't really care. It doesn't really make any sense to him. And it's the
Yeah.
idea that this is why you save money, because people think saving as a pain point, even for kids. Like, you're not trying your 6-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
The hell does that mean? I mean, like, now he can connect the dots where he's like, okay, I'm saving to buy an asset to produce money for me. I'm getting money every month. And then maybe 18 months from now, we can refinance the property. I'll get my principal back. Maybe I can do that again in another deal. And all of a sudden, his paradigm's completely shifted from the average 16-year-old.
Yeah. So is this his first deal that he's joined with you?
It is. Yeah, it is his first deal. So I've got 6 kids. So my oldest one is in college. She's a sophomore. She's doing youth ministry and philosophy, which is great. She might want to be a missionary. And whatever she wants to do, I support her. I think the kids, our job as parents is to give them a happy, healthy, safe environment. After
Yes.
that, they become adults. I don't want her to leave ever.
Right.
But she goes to college and she lives at home, and she's a great person. That's what we need to do. We need to create that environment for them. My son is 16. Does he want to go to college? I don't know. He might go to college. He might not. I don't think he needs it, but I'd like him to go just for the experience, because we homeschool our kids. So
Okay.
the different things. So they're never really in a classroom. So he's
Yeah.
hanging out. He's doing courses online. But I mean, he comes to our boot camps. So he's our boot camp in January, 2 days
Yeah.
with so it's completely different paradigm for him. He sees successful people, and
Yeah.
I think college is a little different nowadays. I don't think you need to spend 300 grand to go to college. I think you can.
No. Yeah.
I don't think you can go and learn stuff on Google or YouTube, right? But I think you can join other platforms like yours or Michael Blank or Joe
Right.
Fairley or Jake and Gino, whatever you want to join and learn there. The problem is when they're that young, they don't know what they want. I want them to have a base of business. I want them to have a base of knowledge. I want to have a base of being able to negotiate, being able to deal, being able to talk to people, have that emotional intelligence, and then figure out as he's getting older, because learning is a lifelong process. You never stop learning. I think college is called commencement when you graduate, because you're commencing your education after you graduate from college. Most people don't pick up a book after they graduate college.
Yeah.
I want them to continually learn. I want them to really enjoy learning. I don't think you need to be in school 8 hours a day when you're 14 years old. I think it's the stupidest thing in the world. And then take home 2 hours of homework. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. That sounds like a full-time job, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When they get out of college, it's the same thing. You want to be able to enjoy it, be able to pick up a book and learn what you like. So, this is his first deal. The other little kids I got a 13-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, and I have a 4-year-old. So they're not in it yet, but they're around there. You know what I'm saying?
Do you
Dad's
teach
home.
them? So, personal question. So, I've got a
Mhm.
4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and one on the way. So, I don't think we'll get
That's
to
great.
6. And I hope my wife doesn't hear me in the other room. She'll come barreling in here. Um, when is it appropriate to start teaching them about finances and everything? And what was the decision making for y'all to homeschool? Because we're also entertaining that idea as well.
So the homeschooling was because I was up in New York. Catholic school is very expensive. You start having 6 kids in school, and then they started closing the schools down. And my wife's sister was homeschooling, and we just started. My first one was 5 years old. We just started. Everyone thought we were crazy up there, but
Yeah.
there's a really big contingent of homeschoolers. And honestly, it's really lifestyle, because you want to go on
Yeah.
vacation in April when no one's going out. I mean, I don't want to go on vacation in February when tickets are X amount of money.
Right. Yeah.
Mom is here in town today, so it's Friday. The kids are going to go to mass at noon, but they can go to breakfast with grandma, so they don't do school today. They pick up a book and read later. The flexibility is amazing. The connection that my kids have, it's my 16-year-old son is holding my 4-year-old daughter, so they have a great connection between the
Yeah.
families. That's another great dynamic. They actually like each other, which is really cool. That's important.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really important. So the problem with school is, I don't know who said it, there's the only time in your life when you're with your same age group is in school and when you're in a nursing home. Every other part of your life, you're always with different age groups. So my son can interact with adults and he can interact with children without a problem. I think that's awesome. And when you want to talk about money with kids, I think you just have to be careful with the words you use around children. You can't, that sounds back to Robert Kiyosaki, I can't afford it. It's too expensive. There's money growing trees. Kids start listening to that, and up at 10, 11 years old, they have that frame. Like, that's what my mom used to say to me, well, we have to stay small. I had one restaurant for 25 years. I've got 1,500 apartment units in 5 years.
Yeah.
It's because I broke out of that mindset, and those words are really powerful. And I mean, teach your kids about budgeting. Teach your kids about, how to be responsible with money. Teach your kids about, we are stewards of our money, right? There's nothing wrong with really enjoying it, but at the same time, let's not really waste it. Let's make it, worth something.
Yeah.
And like that, let's be charitable. Let's give back. We do that a lot. We devote a lot of our time to, giving back resources. We actually have a lot of people coming over to the house. So whenever I can, fly somebody down for vacation, it's great. Having extra money is awesome because it's just a vehicle. You can use it any way you want, right? And that whole thing that money is evil, money is not evil, man. If you're a jerk with money, you're going to be a bigger jerk. It's the bottom line, right?
Money's not evil. It's the person who's evil. And if you've got more money, then you're just going to
use it. That's right. Yeah, you can use it. So I just think there's so much to talk about with money. I just don't want people to, force their kids to save money when they're 4, 5, 6, and 7. You can talk to them and think about it, but think about it. If you're a little kid, my daughter gave me $50 today because my mother was here. So she's like, Dad, put it in the bank for me. I think she's already making the connection that I'm saving for, I'm storing it away for her. But I don't want her to have that scarcity mindset where we're just storing it, we're never going to use it. I want her to have the abundant mindset that it's there. When something pops up, yeah, we can use it, but at least we're saving the money, because I don't want my kids ever to use credit cards to go on vacation or to buy. I'm looking at a couch right now. If you can't afford to buy a couch, I don't want you to buy the couch. I want you to
Yeah.
save the money and then buy it, because I think personal debt is the slavery of today. Between all this debt that's going on, we're so financially illiterate with student debt. I mean, come on, you're going to get six-figure student debt. I mean, you're going to come out and you're going to be paying a mortgage payment. So, I mean, is it worth it? Take a
Yeah.
look at it and analyze it. So things have changed. So I just want them to be really responsible when they spend their money.
Yeah, and I'm amazed at how many people I talk to that have over $100,000 in student
Oh,
debt, and I'm just like, and they're not doctors or lawyers. They're I would say
doctors
a code.
doctors are seven figures. Some of these guys are six, seven,
Yeah,
800 grand, and they're buying $2 million houses. So I don't even know what they're. And the thing is, going forward, they're not going to be making the $500,000 what their predecessors.
yes.
That's
Tough,
that's the
tough to
problem.
tough society to be a doctor in right now for
Yeah,
sure.
it really
Do you
is.
think, you mentioned a couple of, and now I'm going to preface this by saying I love my parents tremendously, right? They have set me up to where I am today, and
Hmm.
without them, I wouldn't be where I am. But they had a lot of the same, hey, money doesn't grow on trees. Hey, we can't afford that, right? And it wasn't necessarily, so my mom was an office manager for a single doc medical practice, and my dad was a fireman, right? So that can give you an idea of
Hmm.
uh, what what our financial situation was look like. So we were very middle class, but they had those same sayings as, hey, we couldn't afford that. But I actually feel like that, uh, and maybe it's just how I'm wired, but I feel like if you've heard the same thing and now seeing where you're at, it gave me fuel to say, I never want to have that conversation with my kids, right?
Hmm.
It's, hey, we can't afford that. And I've even now with our 4-year-old, we'll be in a store or something and he'll want something, a toy or whatever. And I'm like, well, how can we afford that?
Hmm.
And his answer at 4 is, well, you just reach in your wallet and grab the money out, and I'm like,
He's
that's
resourceful.
true. Yeah, that's true.
Uh-huh.
Also, does that mean you're spoiled? I don't know. But
Never spoil a kid. Kid
yeah,
is not fruit, dude. Right?
they're
People think
they're they're not, but
not
it's,
spoil a kid. You
yeah.
know.
But do you think those, what's the phrase I'm looking for there? Those not misnomers, but the way you said it, the way that it was worded. Do you think that was extra fuel that propelled you to be as successful as you are?
Well, for me, basically, it came down to my father came here from another country. My mom did, and 30 and 40 years ago, the economy was structured differently, where time and money were not a thing. You didn't have to leverage time
Right.
like you did. He had a restaurant, maybe sat 200 people. He had 4 partners, him and 3 other guys, and we lived an upper middle class life back in the 70s and 80s and 90s. We did
Mhm.
really well, right? And so for them, it was different. So your parents with firemen, your mom, they probably had decent pensions. It was a completely different time, and people don't understand that. And for them, for my mom, stay small, don't take any risks. We're doing really well. And the thing with the immigrant mentality, they worked really hard, and there's nothing wrong with working really hard. But nowadays, you work really hard. You need to leverage your time, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, this society, the way we're structured, it's all about debt. The
Yeah.
only way you're going to get rich in life, and Kiyosaki said it on my podcast, real estate is debt and taxes. The only way you're going to get rich is by creating debt, by creating business debt to lever your personal debt. Now you don't want to
Yeah.
over lever, but that's the only way you're going to get rich in this society that we have right now. It's not like, when I was at the restaurant, at the end of the week, you make decent money. You go do it next week. You buy maybe 1 or 2 little properties. They throw off cash flow. You pay off the mortgage. But that's not how. It's really
Yeah.
difficult to do that nowadays.
It's a different playing field for sure. The
Oh,
idea of getting a job, working there for 30 years, retiring on the pension, that does not.
those pensions are going bye-bye too, because
Yeah.
teachers' pensions, they're golden handcuffs. They really get you there for 25 years or 30 years, and if you don't stay that long, and then when you do, and they're going to rewrite those laws because
They
there's
will.
not money.
Yeah.
And now the guys getting into it now, those pensions are really watered down as far as how much you're getting, how much you have to pay into it, and also you can rely on that.
Yeah. Well, what do you think is going to happen with as society keeps progressing in one way or another? The things that I want to teach my kids now may not be applicable in 20 years,
Hmm.
or when they're ready to set off on their venture. Your kids are a little bit older, but what do you think, how do you like I have a really good relationship with my parents. So if they give me some advice, I'll take it
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily act on it a lot of times. Sometimes that I get a lot of "I told you so" is right.
Mm-hmm.
But how have you thought about, if society changes and it no longer is that debt ratio that you talked about to get ahead, and
Mm-hmm.
your kids pick up on it, but it's not the way that you made money. So how do you get that point across, or how can they get that point across to you and say, Dad, look, it's not the same playing field, have
That's a
you
good
thought about
question.
that?
I don't. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, look at it this way.
Or will it
We're ha-
change that?
yeah, we're having the battle. There's too much of a fiat currency. There's just too much. There's just too much money. There's too much printing going on. We're having the battle right now. Is it worth it to buy a single family home? Is it worth it to buy your home? And
Yeah.
that's a big question nowadays for everybody. 20 years ago, when you had the appreciation and you could lever up in home equity, and then you sell it, you can pay off the debt and move into something else. The millennials now, they have student debt. Is it smart to buy a $200,000 house? Is it going to appreciate in value? It's not an asset because it's taking money out of your pocket. You have to put 1 to 2% of the purchase price away every year for capex. So whatever
Right.
principal pay down you have is going to upkeep the house. Now, on the flip side, if that house is going to make you feel great, it's your castle, and obviously we're talking about it, if it's a dopamine effect and it makes you feel great, you're going to feel better throughout the day. You're going to take more action. You're going to call the broker. You're going to love your job. It's your palace. So it's a personal thing. I mean, if you're going to be in a place that you see yourself the next 15 years somewhere, then it's probably a decent idea to buy a house. But if you're going to be transient, moving from one job to the next, does it make sense to buy a house just because it's the quote unquote American dream? I don't
Yeah.
think so anymore. That's why multifamily is awesome, because millennials aren't buying homes because they see it's not an investment. It wasn't like it was 30 years ago when your parents bought the house. Warren Buffett's still in the same house. He's still in the same house that he bought. People
Yeah.
aren't like that anymore. The average person, I think, has 11 or 12 residences throughout their entire lives. So does
Yeah.
it make sense to buy a house? If you buy at the wrong part of the cycle and you got to sell, you're going to do that invariably if you've been in 11 different homes, right?
Yeah.
So that's the big one. I mean, as far as them growing up, and you see things change. I mean, things change at such a rapid rate that
Yeah.
I don't think the time for money is going to be huge. It's going to continue to go forward. You're going to need to leverage other people's time, other people's resources, other people's brains, and other people's skill sets. If you can do that, I think you'll be more successful. I just think ultimately you want your kids to find something that they like to do and they're happy. Whether
Yeah.
they make money doing it or not, they'll figure it out. They'll learn how to monetize it as long as they can give value to people. But if you can find something that you really like to do, that's the most important thing to me.
Yeah. I agree with you there. I think there's the house we're in right now is not, we didn't buy it as an investment. We wanted somewhere, our kids to grow up and say,
Hmm.
hey, that was our childhood home. And,
Yes.
I think, the average, you said 11 or 12 homes. And I think if the average person lives to be 70 or 80, that's 7 or 8, every 7 or 8 years you're moving,
Yep.
which since my wife and I've been together, it's been every 2 to 3.
Mhm.
So, uh,
Yeah, that's the average person. So somebody might stay in a home, for 30 years, and somebody might be flipping out every 2 or 3, like you,
yeah,
right? It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
You know,
Hey, how much time do we have?
I have another 20 minutes.
Okay, perfect. Because I know I was late.
That's
And
okay.
I apologize for that. That's such a rookie mistake. So one of the things that I hear, and you just went through your first indication, so I'm curious to know about that. But one of the things that I hear from people who join the real estate investing for the W2 employee Facebook group, I know that's a shameless plug, but is their biggest pain points is raising money, right? And you guys are, you said you had one partner, but you just did your first syndication. So what's the best advice you can give somebody who wants to start raising money?
So the first thing I think you need to do is focus on whatever asset class you're doing, whether it's raising for single family homes, whether it's raising for oil and gas, whether it's raising for multifamily, mobile home parks. You need to learn that implicitly. You need to learn how to be able to speak the lingo. That's the first thing. I think the next thing is start building an investor list. I mean, we had the podcast, so we've been able to increase that list through our podcast. We've had a couple live events, which we increased the list really a lot. I'm continuing to create education, so I create a lot of content. So every time someone joins the education platform, they become an investor or on our investor portal. And I'm teaching them how to do it. So these students are investing in our deals also side by side. We're doing webinars, so they're learning how to become a limited partner in a deal,
Right.
learning how to syndicate. It's ultimately as much value as you can create. Create a meetup, a multifamily meetup. Start out with 10 people, in a coffee shop. All of a sudden, 3 months later, you've got 200 people on that meetup. Start learning how to speak to them, right? And I think ultimately you have to go and get educated. You have to join a group or platform. You're talking about a student that, that was at our meetup this weekend. He learning about multifamily. We shifted his mind completely. I think he never even thought about raising capital, but he knew the mechanics of how to underwrite the deal. He
Yep.
knew the mechanics of how, where is the market good? It's a good market. He understood the mechanics of, okay, who's going to property manage this thing? He understood the mechanics of, okay, what you look for in a property. If all it looks good, the next point is just putting it and creating a credibility book or a pitch deck and just start talking to people about the opportunity. You have to create a substantive relationship first if you're doing a 506B, but that's from friends, family, everyone that you know. Start talking about it. And it might be rough at first. It might be hard at first, but that's how you start out. You just start out by adding value to other people, by giving them the opportunity. And also by, the thing is, people, when you're financially free, you can see it. You really listen to the other side. What does that investor want? Does he like the stock market? Okay, if he likes the stock market, it might be hard, but do you have 401k money that's locked away and getting 2% and getting cream? Maybe you can give me some of that money, and I'll give you the opportunity to invest in our deal. So there's all different ways. You have to educate the other side first, because a lot of people don't even know what real estate is. They're just used to the stock market, they're used to that Ponzi scheme. So with us, we have a tangible asset. We're going to be able to return an 8% preferred rate every year. We have this asset that's appreciating. The tenants are paying down the principal. It's something you can see. Stocks, I mean, hey, if Tim Cook at Apple does something crazy, all of a sudden you have no control, and you lose 20% in one day. What happened to Boeing? Boeing's flying the airplane. Maybe it's not their fault, but all of a sudden that plane falls out of the sky.
Mm-hmm.
You have no control over that. So with real estate, as long as you choose the right sponsors, that's the most important thing, is the sponsors of the deal. Because if something goes sideways, you want them to be transparent and live up to their agreement. And if they can't, they'll do whatever they can. That's the most important thing. Then just check on your investor goals. What are you looking to do? How long is your time frame for money? What do you plan on doing with that money? Where are you getting the money from? All those things have to be worked out.
Yeah. It amazes me how many people I come in contact with that are so skeptical about real estate, but then they have no problem losing money in the stock market. I'm like, guys,
they're used to that paradigm. And it's honestly, it's such a low level of financial intelligence, because picking stocks is hitting a button. It's sexy. It's easy. That dopamine, it's instant gratification. You can make money real quick, and then you can, that's what I think the attraction to that is. But I think
I haven't thought about that, but I think you're onto something about the dopamine effect of trading those stocks.
I went out of college back in '92. I graduated. Back then you'd look at Value Line. The data was 3 months old and all that. I would love to analyze stocks. I love to analyze companies because it was real. It was, now it's more all computer based. It's algorithms that are trading, and you're talking about, arbitrage or 1 or 2 cents. So there's no such thing as investing for the long term, because now companies evolve, and within 3 years they can be completely out of business, like GE. Whereas 30 years ago, the timeline of a company was a little bit longer. You still had some length. Now you get companies like Airbnb. They're worth more than these hotels, and they don't own anything.
It's amazing, isn't it?
You have Lyft and Uber that are worth billions of dollars, and what do they own? They own a platform. They own technology. You don't own
the process. That's about it.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you compete with that if you're a brick and mortar, and all of a sudden somebody comes through? It's like, holy crap. So stocks are hard. They're a lot harder.
Yeah. What's your best advice? So this month of April, we're going through the 10 Pillars of Wealth by Alex Becker. Have you read that one yet?
Yes. Traffic stopper. Yes. Traffic fighter. Yes. That's my favorite.
Yeah. So my wife must be printing something. Hang on 1 second.
Dude, I just finally got my office a year ago. So, and I was doing it in my bedroom. Like, we were renting a house for a year before I bought this one. So I feel your pain.
I think she's done. So we, in the W2 Capitalist for the month of April, we're doing the 10 Pillars of Wealth by Alex Becker. And you said you've read it before or listened to it. What was it? The traffic
fighter. I mean, full disclosure, I don't remember the 10 pillars. I don't remember his specifically, but I remember saying, do you want to be a traffic fighter your whole life when you're in traffic?
Yeah.
Especially guys, I used to live in New York. People commute 2 hours a day each way.
Oh, man.
Dude, but you're conditioned to do that. That is painful. That is just soul sucking, man, to me,
I'm going to just unplug the printer. Well, and we went to a Giants game before. This is before we had kids. The Patriots game was the last game we went to. And our son was 18 months old, I think. So we, 1 second. All right. The printer won't go off anymore. But so we stayed in near the stadium in New York. It was in New Jersey, right? And of course, we wanted to go to the city and play and do whatever. And we hit rush hour traffic 5 o'clock one afternoon, and we just sat there and thought, how do people do this? It was amazing. It was very eye-opening experience for us. But one of the things that back to the 10 pillars of wealth, sorry, the whole printer thing, and you hear that little pterodactyl in the background, that's our daughter. So the 10 pillars of wealth, it talks about exchanging time for money, right? Or money for time. What are some of and you've done that, right? You've successfully done that, and you're doing it now. You've got all these units that are providing you somewhat passive income. I got into a discussion with somebody recently that there is no such thing as passive income. It's more, some of it's more passive than others, right? But it's all residual. But what are some of the tips that you provide for folks to get in the habit of looking at exchanging time for money or out of that race?
It's really hard when you first start out because you're just used to going and doing a job. I think you need to start out small. That's why we like multifamily, because nothing is truly passive, right? Unless you're investing as a limited partner in a syndication, that's truly passive. But you get your check every quarter.
Right.
That's great. I think that's where you should start. And I think anyone who gets in and wants to get into real estate, maybe they find a syndication or a syndicator who's doing a deal, and you want to invest 50,000 or 25,000, or whatever the minimum is, just to see their process, just to see how they do things, just to see how they talk, just to see how they create a webinar, just to see how they distribute money every quarter, just to see how they run the deal, how they put the value adds on the deal. As far as creating multiple streams of revenue, you're going to have to need to share the pie, because there's no way that I can do the Jake and Gino education full-time day to day and property manage. Jake does property management day to day. I do Jake and Gino day to day. We created a syndication company. We brought on another partner to do the syndication company because we have 600 investors. If you need to spend time on that phone with all those guys, I just not enough bandwidth today for me to do that. So as you start scaling up and creating those other streams, some of those streams are going to be passive, but the Jake and Gino is not passive to me. But the Jake, it basically is, he does a podcast a week, and he might do a couple of calls. He might spend 3 or 4 hours a week on Jake and Gino. But the Jake and Gino brand helps out with the property management, because I'm learning a lot of stuff. I'm on podcasts with some smart guys. We're learning vendors. We're making connections. We're having the live events where we're actually bringing and learning new vendors. And then it helps the syndication company, because I'm learning. I'm getting on new investors on there. I'm raising money through the platform. So they work in a symbiotic relationship. I think you just need to start small and just need to get into your first deal. And from there, you'll figure it out. You'll figure out that you can grow, but you need to really scale up with people. You need to have people on your team.
Yeah. I challenge people to do, if they can't do it for a week, just do it for a few days and document where you're spending your time. Right. And most people who are not on this path that you and I are on, they probably have 10 to 20 hours a week that they're just squandering away
easily.
Right.
I'm doing that right now, because at 8 o'clock, my kids are still a little young. So I spend a couple hours every night with my wife, just hanging on the couch, watching TV, watching the news, because it's really gripping what's been going on for the last couple of years. Right.
Yeah.
So that's my downtime. I just sit there and, I used to read all the time, but, I need a little downtime now. I will guarantee you people can find an hour a day for 7 days, extra 7 to 10 hours a week, guaranteed. Easy. And that 7 to 10 hours can read one book a week, and then, or listen to the book a week. Right. And then from there, you're reading 50 books a year. After 5 years, you have 250 books read. It's basically going to college on a topic that you're into. So, that's hard for people, but that's all habitual. Read Atomic Habits by James Clear. You'll learn how to start creating habits. You learn how to start setting yourself up with success, because people who are successful just have successful habits. That's what it comes down to. I mean, like, we all have habits. We all want to do certain things every day. But if you can create successful habits, like working on yourself, having a positive mindset, putting positive stuff into your mind, you're going to become successful. There's just no way. There's no two ways about it.
Some folks' habits are watching Netflix for an hour or two before they go to bed. And I'm not saying you don't do that every now and then to relax and take time with your significant other, but make sure you get your other stuff done first. All right. So last question. Well, I got two more questions for you, and then we'll get out of here. What do you think the market is going, and are you concerned about it? Does it bother you at all?
Well, I mean, GDP was revised downward, right? 2.2%. I mean, you have all the people on Facebook. They're all prognosticators. There's
yeah.
These are the same people that have been sitting on the sidelines forever. And they're like, I just tell people, honestly, if you're going to get into a space, everyone tells me, well, I can't get into multifamily because I'm going to wait till the market corrects. And I'm going to wait till I have my money saved up for a down payment. You're never going to have money saved up for a down payment. And the market, when it corrects, you're not even going to know, because you're not educated. You don't know what it looks like, and you don't have a team built out. You don't have a market picked up. So I think if you're going to invest, the cycles are like this. There's 4 different market cycles. Just learn it. Learn where we are in the cycle, and don't try to have that crystal ball, because I just think we have the only real economy on the planet other than China. People are going to continue to flood money into this country to buy assets, and that's why prices are low. People see the demographics. 36% of the U.S. is a renter nation. It was 31% a decade ago. They're going to continue to rent. And I just don't see multifamily. Long term, I think it's healthy. The affordable housing crisis is here. I mean, HUD has been mismanaged so poorly. They just hired a CFO. I mean, you kidding me? You don't have a CFO of HUD to see where the money's going, and that's the problem, because it's a government entity. They don't
it's a government-run entity.
And be careful with Section 8, because a lot of these Section 8 authorities don't have the money. I mean, they are short on funds. Nothing is guaranteed. Government shutdown, you're not going to get paid. So just be careful where we are. I think long term, you have to buy right. I mean, you just got to buy a cash flowing asset, and you buy it right. You have long-term fixed rate financing debt on the asset, and you're looking to cash flow it and looking to run and manage it properly. That's the best we can do, right? I mean, 5 years ago, we're buying assets. Everyone, if you remember back in 13 and 14, we were buying 1 bedrooms. They were renting for $350, $400 a month. That's why they were worth 22 or 23,000 a unit. Now that same asset is renting for $600 a month, and it's worth $35 a door. That's why, because the income went up dramatically. But back then it was risky, because the economy was still, back in 13, the economy wasn't great. I mean, we were still a little fearful. It was not good. So that's why the prices were lower. Now there's more exuberance, there's more money floating around, and that's why prices are escalated right now.
What do you think? How soon? Give me a range on when you think there will be a dip in housing prices. And when most people think of that, they think of single family, right? Or at least I do. So,
I hope soon. I hope soon. I mean, we bought an asset in Knoxville. Bought it great. I mean, it's not going to dip anywhere below we bought it, because we bought it really expensive. But the crazy thing about it is, my house in New York is still 25 to 30% below where it was back in 06 and 07. The house I'm living in right now, I bought it for less than what it sold for back in 07. So I think a lot of these prices, they're still not back in the pre-6, 07, 08 prices. I don't know where you're living, but I see that. I mean, obviously you have other markets that are really hot, like maybe Denver, Colorado, and you got Idaho, Boise, Idaho, and you have certain California markets. But I think a lot of it, and it has to do with debt. I think Fannie and Freddie are still pretty underwriting for 65, 70% LTV. They still want to see coverage ratios that are pretty stable. That's what we're seeing in the multifamily, because we're refining it, and they're looking, even though cap rates are low, we're not refining at 80% LTV. We're still getting 55 or 70%. So that actually makes me feel a little bit better about where the debt is. You just got to be careful what asset class you're in. I think office is going to be difficult unless you're in a metro, because people, me and you, are working out of our houses, right? And companies are downsizing. I think strip malls are going to be really, with what's going on, you can't live in the internet. So basically you need to rent the house. Right? So you're going to be the Best Buys of the world. These boxes are really shrinking. Unless you have an A prime property in a real good location, just be careful with that. And as soon as the economy starts faltering, that asset class is going to get really hurt. Mobile
Yeah.
home parks are great. There's affordable housing, just that they're tearing them down or they're not rebuilding anymore. So it's a smaller niche. I think it's an awesome, but even those, you have hedge funds that are going after them. They used to be 12, 13 caps. Now they're 7 caps. So if
Yeah.
you can buy 7
Which,
cap with the value add, right, it's still a great asset, but you have to really know and be in that asset. I'm just trying to think of any other asset classes. Yeah, single family homes. I mean, the turnkeys, they've really escalated in price. I think those are a little bit more on the comp analysis. So you just got to be careful with when you're
yeah.
buying those, right?
Yeah. And to answer your question, I'm just across the state from you. I'm in Pensacola. So,
Oh, dude, yeah.
yeah,
Florida's great. Isn't Florida great? I
it's
mean,
awesome. Yeah.
I moved down here. I just hope enough New Yorkers don't move down to turn it into a blue state, because we moved down here because it's a red state, because
Nice.
there's no state income tax. The
State
people,
income tax is big. It's,
it's huge.
or
It
lack
makes,
of, I should.
yeah, it makes a big difference. So hopefully they don't do that. And like you said, I live in St. Augustine, so I'm 500 feet from the beach. So it's
Yeah.
just a great place to live. Like I said, the people are great. We just hope it doesn't go by the wayside, and hopefully Medicare, Medicaid for all, it'll bankrupt the state. Let's hope it
Yeah.
doesn't.
Hopefully it doesn't, right? All right. So last question, and then we'll get into contact information, make sure we have all that set up. What's one thing that you still love to cook in the kitchen? What's your favorite thing?
Oh, nothing. I hate cooking.
Yeah, so I mean, if you have 6 kids, I doubt there's ever a time where you just have, hey, this is my time. I doubt there's ever just Gino one-on-one time. But if there is, and you're hungry, what's the first thing you're going to cook for
It's
yourself?
funny because when you're at the restaurant, you're used to making a mess and all. So at the
Yeah.
restaurant, I like duck, right? So I would get a piece of duck breast and just saute it and get that duck fat on there. I won't make it at home. It's a mess, and plus you can't make. I'll never cook for myself ever. Because my wife cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 3 squares. If she ever sees me cooking for myself, she'll shoot me, and she should shoot me, right? So I love duck. To be honest with you, I think duck.
Okay. Sauteed duck. All right.
Yeah.
That's one thing I've never had before. I'm
Oh,
going to have to try it out then.
get a piece of duck breast, just saute it. You don't need any fat, because you saute it on the fat side. You scar it a little bit. What is it called?
Okay.
And then you just put it on the fat side, flip it over, and you can cook it medium rare. If you want to finish it off in the oven, you put a little balsamic vinegar, reduce it with a little bit of butter. It is awesome, dude. It's great.
I'm
Your mouth is watering right now, so
and mine is too, and I've never had it before. So
it's really good.
if there's any place around here that serves duck for lunch.
It makes a mess. That's the thing. But I mean, like, you can put it in the oven and you can just roast duck. But I love duck breast. I really do.
Well, I'm definitely gonna have to try it. All right, Gino. Thank you for joining me, and I apologize again for the mix up on the schedule. That is totally on me.
No problem. That's okay.
I owe Josh a apology too, so I'll get with him. But you've got a lot of things going on. We didn't even mention your best-selling book, Wheelbarrow Profits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is on Amazon. I'll link to that. But what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Just go on the website, jakeandgino.com.
Okay.
We have a ton of articles. We have our podcast there, Wheelbarrow Profits. The podcast is great because we do a lot of multifamily, but we have a lot of, Gen Biz and business and personal development guys on there. It's important to have them on there because it's really creating a business and creating mindset. My email is gino@jakeandgino.com. Just hit me up, ask questions. And like I said, you can't pick my brain, but ultimately what we like to do is we like to get people, joining our mentorship. We have a different process. We want people to start with goal setting for themselves. And really it's not just trying to sell education, but you're trying to educate people on why multifamily and, is it right for them? Because if you're going to sign somebody up and it's not right for the person, they're not going to take action, but you want them to be engaged. You want them to know why multifamily, you want them to know that there's a community here behind you.
Yeah. Yeah. And same thing with the W2 Capitalist Group. I've had guys sign up. They didn't take action, and within a month they were gone. And I'm glad they're gone, right?
Yes.
Because sure, it's missed out revenue, but it's
I know the revenue is not, like I said, I'm not doing this to make money.
It's not like I'm making a whole lot of money on it anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. And you want to be careful with that, because you don't want your mindset to say, you know what, I'm okay. I don't really need to monetize this on a grand scale. I know we will and we already start, but that's not my focus. My focus is really to help people out, and really I'm learning myself too, because I'm learning so many more things when you start talking to people, and you start connecting people, and deals are coming to us and investors are coming to us. So the whole thing is
Yeah.
just great. So that's what ultimately, what you do.
Well, yeah, and it sounds very much similar to why I started the W2 Capitalist, is because I wanted like-minded people to interact with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yes.
the limited amount of people who are at the office that I work in, who know what I do for real estate investing, they don't get it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're just
Yep.
not as focused. And there's a local meetup I actually spoke at this month a couple of times that has those like-minded people. But I'm a keyboard jockey, man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an IT guy. We started talking about that a little bit earlier, and my ears kind of perked up. Like, hey, we're going to get into that part of the conversation. I'm glad we didn't.
Uh-huh.
But it's one of those things. If you surround yourself with like-minded people to push you even further and keep you
Mm-hmm.
accountable through your group, through
Accountable.
my group,
Yep.
it's going to be you're going to be amazed at how much further, how much more productive.
You should come down to our event in October. We have an event in Orlando in October at the Gaylord Palms, the 19th and 20th. If you want, I'll
So
have Josh send you a coupon code to it. It's at the Gaylord Palms. We had in Nashville last year 400 people. I think this year it's going to be 600. So you're probably 2.5 hour drive. I did it there because I'm only a 2 hour drive, and I'm going to spend Disney.
no, you said Orlando.
It's in Orlando, yeah.
Orlando is a little bit further for us, so we're on the very west of the Panhandle. So, but
Okay. You're up. Yeah,
yeah,
I
but
got you.
we made the trip to Orlando last year, and I might do that because the conference that I want to go to this year is in Washington D.C., and
Mm-hmm.
which would be a great trip with the family, but with a newborn and a
DC
4 year
is
old
a
and a
cool
2 year.
place. If you're yeah, if
Yeah,
you're into history and you're into museums and stuff like
yeah.
that, it's a cool place. It really is.
It may be a trip for us to take when the kids get a little older and they can
Yeah.
appreciate it more. But yeah,
Yes. Yeah. It's funny because the same with Disney. You have 3 kids, they're really young. You're going for yourself and you're going for your experience with them. They're not going to remember it, but who
yeah,
cares? You have a lot of fun with them there, right?
yeah, yeah. So we
That's
may be able to do that. We'll see. We'll see how the
okay.
delivery comes on. But I'll make a note of it and grab the link from Josh so people can find out more about it and
Great.
hopefully see you there for sure.
Okay. That'd be awesome.
All right.
Well, dude, thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks again. I appreciate it, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
That
Okay.
sounds good. Have a
All
great
right.
day, Jay.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Have a great weekend.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.